The hunting pack moved through the dying colony like shadows given teeth. Alpha Rogar Vex led them, his crimson eyes blazing with a fury that had burned for 3 solar cycles. Behind him, 20 warriors of the Carvathi pack moved in perfect silence, their claws scraping softly against the metal floors of the human settlement on Arcturus 9. They had come for blood, human blood. The colony was supposed to be abandoned. Intelligence reports confirmed that the evacuation had completed 2 weeks prior, after the mining accident that released toxic gases into the lower levels. But Rogar Vex didn't trust human intelligence. He trusted only what his enhanced senses told him, and right now, they whispered of something alive within these walls. His packmates fanned out through the corridors, weapons drawn, searching for any sign of the species that had stolen everything from them. The humans had promised safe passage through this sector. They had sworn by their fragile treaties and their weaker gods that the Carvathi merchant vessels would be protected. Instead, pirates bearing human military codes had ambushed the convoy. Rogar's mate had been on the lead ship. His sister, her 3 cubs, all dead. The Galactic Council offered condolences. The human government issued apologies. But words were wind, and wind could not bring back the dead. So Rogar had gathered his pack, the finest hunters of their generation, and they had come to the human colony to take what was owed. A life for a life. Blood for blood. The old ways. Rogar's translator implant crackled as one of his scouts reported in. Alpha. We've found something. Residential sector. HAB Unit 7. There's a heat signature. Human? Rogar's voice was a low growl. Yes, Alpha. 1 adult. And... The scout paused. There are other signatures. Smaller. Very small. Rogar's heart hammered against his ribs. Children. The humans had left their young behind. Perhaps the universe was more just than he had believed. He signaled for the pack to converge on the location, moving with practiced efficiency through the abandoned corridors. When they reached HAB Unit 7, Rogar overrode the door mechanism with a simple claw swipe. The security systems were offline, and the door hissed open to reveal a dimly lit living space. Standard human quarters, modest and functional. But what stopped Rogar in his tracks wasn't the furniture or the scattered belongings. It was the scene on the worn couch in the center of the room. A human woman sat slumped against the cushions, her head tilted back, clearly asleep or unconscious. Her breathing was shallow but steady, her dark hair falling across her face. She wore the simple gray uniform of colony maintenance workers, stained with grease and dust. But none of that mattered. What mattered were the 3 small forms curled against her chest. Carvathi cubs. Rogar's breath caught. He raised a clawed hand to halt his pack, his warriors freezing instantly. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. They simply stared at the impossible sight before them. The cubs were young, perhaps 2 months old, their fur still soft and downy. They were pressed against the human's torso, their small bodies rising and falling with her breath. One had its tiny paws wrapped around her arm. Another was tucked under her chin. The third was sprawled across her lap, its tail twitching in sleep. Alpha, whispered Vorel, his second in command. Those markings. That's the Starfire litter. Rogar's blood turned to ice. The Starfire litter, his sister's cubs. The ones who had supposedly died in the pirate attack. Scan them, Rogar commanded, his voice hoarse. Vorel's bioscanner hummed softly. DNA match confirmed. They're Starfire's offspring. All 3. They're alive, Alpha. They're alive. The human woman stirred slightly, murmuring something incoherent. One of the cubs made a small chirping sound, and her hand instinctively moved to stroke its head in a soothing gesture. The cub settled immediately, nuzzling closer. Rogar took a step forward, his massive form casting a shadow across the couch. He could kill her now. One strike, and the human would never wake. It would be justice. It would be vengeance. But the cubs were sleeping so peacefully. Alpha, what are your orders? Voral's question hung in the air like a blade. Rogar knelt slowly, bringing himself level with the human woman. Up close, he could see the exhaustion etched into her features. Dark circles under her eyes. Dried tear tracks on her cheeks. Her hands were bandaged, and there were burns on her forearms. Fresh injuries. On the low table beside the couch, Rogar spotted feeding bottles, medical supplies, and a datapad. He picked up the datapad carefully, activating it. The screen flickered to life, showing a personal log. The woman's voice played softly through the speakers. Day 14. The cubs are stable. I've managed to synthesize something close to Karvathi milk formula using the colony's remaining supplies. They're eating regularly now, and their wounds are healing. I still don't know how they ended up in the cargo bay during the evacuation, but I couldn't leave them. Everyone else is gone. The shuttles are gone. Communications are down. But I have enough supplies to keep them alive for maybe another month. After that, the log ended. Rogar set the datapad down with trembling hands. He looked at the human woman, truly looked at her, and saw not an enemy but something he hadn't expected to find. A guardian. A protector, someone who had stayed behind in a toxic, dying colony to save 3 alien cubs that weren't her responsibility. Someone who had chosen them over her own safety. Lyra Hale. Voral was reading from his scanner. Colony maintenance supervisor. She was scheduled on the last evacuation shuttle, but never boarded. No disciplinary record, no criminal history. She just stayed. Rogar reached out slowly, his massive clawed hand hovering over one of the sleeping cubs, the smallest one, the one his sister had named Kessa. She had his sister's silver markings along her spine. The cub stirred at his proximity, and the human woman's hand immediately moved to settle on the cub's back, still asleep but responding to some instinct, protecting them even in sleep. The alpha of the Karvathi pack, who had come with 20 warriors to paint these walls with human blood, withdrew his hand. He stood slowly, turning to face his pack. They watched him with expectant eyes, waiting for the command to strike. Instead, Rogar placed his clawed hand over his heart and bent his head in the traditional gesture of yielding. The blood debt is paid, he said quietly. This human has preserved the Starfire line. She has given more than we lost. Voral stepped forward. Alpha, the Council. The Council will hear that we found the cubs alive because of Lyra Hale's courage. We will take them home, and we will take her with us. Not as a prisoner, as a packmate. Rogar's voice was firm. Any who disagree may challenge me now. No one moved. Rogar looked down at the sleeping woman and the cubs once more. Contact our ship. Medical team and cryopods for safe transport. We leave within the hour, and someone find out how to safely wake a human. Carefully. As his pack moved to carry out his orders, Alpha Rogar Vex stood watch over Lyra Hale and the 3 sleeping cubs. He had come for vengeance and found something far more valuable. He had found proof that perhaps the universe could still surprise him, that perhaps not all debts were paid in blood, and that sometimes the strongest warriors were the ones who never intended to fight at all.